Hello, and welcome to the Delusional Boyfriend Book Club, where if falling in love with a golem made of clay is wrong, I don't want to be right. My name is Courtney, and I'll be your host. And today we're talking about October's BL manga of the month. This is Love in Limbo by Haji. This was originally written in 2016. It's published by Sublime, and I chose it because it's got a little bit of a spooky vibe. We're dealing with spirits in limbo. So if you guys are ready to jump in, make sure that you've subscribed to us over on YouTube, rate, review wherever you're listening. If you are listening on a podcast app, make sure you turn on auto downloads so that when I release any bonus episodes, they're delivered straight to your library. With all of that being said, I want to get into our tropes here. So we do have an age gap, which is one of my favorite tropes, but we're also in a supernatural spiritual setting. So age gaps don't really matter there, but it is used in a really comedic way. So that's one of the tropes going on. And then we've also got our kind of grumpy versus sunshine. So in this story, I'm just going to kind of get into it. We are set in limbo, and limbo is the spiritual realm between life and afterlife. So it is a living world. So at some point, our characters question, while they're eating eggs, are there chickens here? Did the chickens hatch the eggs? Is there life? And we're given that answer. Yes, there is life in limbo, but it is a place where people loop from limbo to basically rest and learn from their mistakes in their life, and then be reincarnated back into the world and given another opportunity to reach a higher state of being. So that's the world that we're set in, the world that we're dropped into. And our main character is, we know him as Callan. He is a war general. And our very first scene in this story is him basically meeting a who looks like an accountant in an office setting. And it really does give me Good Place vibes. And I've said that about other stories before, but I love the Good Place. And I was raised very religious, and I like the idea of the afterlife and those kinds of processes and procedures that happen in the afterlife, a la Goosebumps. Like, I love the idea that we have just an office, like a DMV, where you go to see if you're going to go to heaven or hell. So our main character shows up there. He's a war general. Whoever he's talking to says, "Ugh, looks like you did some murdering for good. Like, you're really brave on the war field, but whether you did it for good or for bad, murder is wrong. So you're not going to the good place." And he hands him his judgment, and he wakes up in limbo. And when he wakes up in limbo, so he's like a kind of a middle-aged general. He's hot. He's got a facial scar. He is decorated. He's like a decorated war veteran. So he like shows up in this world in his uniform. And the first person he sees is this very young man who seems to be about 18 or 19 years old, really young man, about half his age. And that guy tries to welcome him. He's what we know as a caretaker. And this guy has amnesia. He doesn't know why he's woken up in this field. And the caretaker lets him know, you're in limbo. And he asks the caretaker, what's your rank? What army are you with? And he says, there's no armies here. This is another realm of being, and I'm a caretaker, and I'm here to welcome you and kind of show you the ropes. So he looks down, and all of his like medals from life have turned into trinkets, and this caretaker is holding this little bunny, and he takes him back to this compound where everyone is living, and it's like a little village, and everyone seems to be going about daily life. And we learn that everyone there is a soul awaiting their reincarnation. So that's the story that we're set into. Those are our two main characters. Callan gets his name because the field that he was dropped into when that caretaker Mikado finds him was full of flowers. And he says that whatever the scientific name for the flower is, it has that word Callan in it. So Mikado is the caretaker. Callan is our new spirit in limbo, our main character. And Mikado asks him to call him Golem. And you might know a golem is a creature made of clay, and it's given life and it takes human form once certain spells or magic is placed on it. So, as we get into this story, we realize that our main character, Callan, is in this world with a job, and his job is to be the Reaper. Whereas Gollum or Mikado, his job is to be a caretaker, and everybody is kind of working at this common goal of peace and rehabilitation for these spirits before they get to move on. So everything is kind of fine and dandy until this monster shows up in the realm. And the monster is called a Maw. And the Maw is like just a big spiritual like worm, I guess. And Callan doesn't know how to help when this battle arises. But he knows he's being called the Reaper and he's supposed to have a job in this world and he's supposed to be helpful, but he doesn't know how to help. He has never seen this kind of supernatural thing before. And Mikado, on the other hand, is caretaker, and he like kind of throws himself into the situation, and he's like, Callan, you need to materialize your scythe because you're a reaper. And he's like, I don't know how to do that. And at that moment, the Maw gets Gollum. He gets Mikado, and he snatches his arm off. And Callan loses it. He like transforms into the Reaper. He has his scythe, and he beats the thing. He immediately destroys it. Everyone's so impressed, and he goes over to Mikado, and he's so worried about him. And they've only known each other for like 2 days, and already there's this like romance and this spark between them. And so he's like, "Are you okay?" And Mikado goes, "I'm a golem. I thought you knew. I'm made of clay. Like my arm will regenerate. It's fine." But Callan seems very much still concerned with whether or not he's in pain, if he's going to regenerate. So they get back to the village, and we realize that this other cantankerous old man who's in the village is the Golem's dad, and he is another main character. And he, instead of having this floppy-eared bunny as his little spiritual partner or buddy or pet, he has this weird like, oh, it looks like he looks like a pillow or like a patch doll, an ugly doll. I don't know what you call them, but anyways, that's his spiritual friend, and they become really important characters in this world as well. And we learn that he is like a doctor. So he patches up his son's arm and regenerates the arm for him. And he helps Callan kind of understand the circumstances of this world. And he tells him the history of how Gollum got to be like that. So basically, in his own life, the other cantankerous old man, the doctor of this village, in his real life, his wife died, and not being able to cure her of an illness when he was a doctor was really shameful. So when his son got the same illness and died, in order to kind of smite the gods, he created a golem. And he resurrected his son's spirit into the golem. And that is obviously very taboo. You're not allowed to play God. And so that not only basically sealed his fate and made him go to limbo, it also made it so his son's soul, which was in the process of reincarnating, was sucked back into this clay body. So he also passes on to limbo with his dad. And so now the dad is in limbo, kind of not wanting to be reincarnated so he can stay with his son, who's a golem, who he made a golem, who now cannot be reincarnated. He is the only creature in this world that can't move on. And that like really got me. I really did not like that. And in the Catholic faith, there is limbo, and it is a purification process before you're allowed to enter into heaven. And it can be used in these very like scare tactic ways to, I don't know, get the congregants, the people who believe in this afterlife, to fear that their loved ones or people who aren't baptized or themselves, if they sin, will get trapped in this place for a long time before they get to heaven. And Catholics believe you can pray for those people and hasten their time through limbo into heaven. So I have a very deep-seated, built-in fear of the afterlife and of limbo. And I've even had spiritual leaders in my Catholic faith tell me, you don't need to be afraid of limbo. Time would pass there in a way that wouldn't bother you. You would be burned of all your sins, but it would be like going in a hot springs. It would be like a good burn. And it just always frightened me. So the idea that Mikado Gollum, because his dad made him into this creature and halted his reincarnation possibilities, the fact that he's stuck there forever really scares me and like viscerally affected me. So that plot line was something that I thought was pretty deep, something I had to wrestle with. And this author is also like a doujinshi author, and I think a lot of times things that are like 18 plus or not safe for work, they get a bad rap that they're not very deep. But I love this story. First of all, I think that the art is really, really superior. I also think that the storyline is original. I don't see a lot of storylines happening in a world like Limbo. It is a world that we know in real life. That's something that we're already familiar with. It's not completely original. So I like the way that this story used that instead of building its own sci-fi or fantasy world. It took something that pre-existed and fleshed it out. And in my mind, it was very relevant because that's already a concept. Limbo's already a concept that I think about all the time. So really like that about this story. And then the question of, if you are trapped there forever, could you find love? Could you find purpose? And would not being able to move on or be reincarnated, would that be so awful? Or even in that situation, can we find like a silver lining and a purpose in that existence? And I think we can. I think the answer is we can. But I think the answer in this story is also that in any circumstance, no matter what lies beyond, no matter how scary it might be to be trapped in heaven or hell or limbo, there are possibilities that you find happiness and that you find other spirits and other souls, and that you're continually learning and growing and loving in all of these different forms that life and afterlife take. So anyways, I really like that part of it, but it did really affect me that there's this possibility in the stakes that Mikado will never move on. And the Reaper, Callan, our main character, he could move on. He has a certain job in this world, and then he has the possibility of going back to Earth and trying over again to make it into the final afterlife, like heaven. And that's scary. And as we go through the story and he learns that, the dad is kind of also procrastinating moving on so that he can stay with the son. The dad is like, keep your mitts off my kid. But the dad also kind of wants to encourage this love between them because it offers a higher quality of life and something that his son could experience that he might have otherwise robbed him of by robbing him of his reincarnation. So Callan kind of initially is like, oh, I don't have any intentions with your son. But as they hang out and he is so full of wonder and so generous with the other spirits in Limbo, regardless of his lot in this afterlife as a golem, as he sees that, he really starts to admire Mikado, and Mikado is like giddy with Callan. He has a crush on him from the moment he lands in that field, and he lets him know pretty early on. So they're standing on like the edge of the world, and he is very embarrassed, and he's like, don't try not to take what my dad said too seriously, like about not hitting on me. I don't think it would be the worst thing. And Callan is like, what do you mean? And Mikado says, I actually like you. I think I have a crush on you. I actually think I love you. And he says, I love you. And he comes out, and Callan doesn't exactly know how to respond in that moment. And the wheels are kind of turning in his head that it might be unfair to love somebody who is made of clay, who is maybe desperately looking for somebody to love. And Callan kind of wants to be sure of his own feelings and his own intentions with this boy. He's a man. He is a man. He's much younger than him, but he's a man. He wants to make sure of his own intentions before he returns his affections. So he hugs him, and then there's a moment where the little floppy-eared bunny helps teach Callan how to teleport. So they have that weird icebreaker where Mikado confesses his feelings, Callan does not return his feelings, and then they do this practical kind of lesson where they learn how to teleport around. And when they get back to the village after this, Callan is kind of thinking over whether or not it's practical or possible or ethical to love this spiritual being who he might have to leave when he himself is reincarnated. So all of that is being wrestled with. And then we also learned that his job as Reaper is to help people move on and become reincarnated. So there's a ceremony that's going to take place basically where Callan is going to open the door to the other world and help somebody through it. And Mikado is really excited for him, and he goes through all the other caretakers' journals from past caretakers, and he tries to find different helpful things for the ceremony. And as he's doing this, he's talking to a different caretaker, and he's reading his own notes from his own journal. And this coworker of his goes, "Oh my God, your journal doesn't even read like a caretaker journal. It reads like a little girl's diary. You are obsessed with this guy." And he's like, "Well, I think he's amazing. And more so than I want to like be physical or intimate with him, I want to be useful to him. I have this feeling like I'd even want to die for him as long as I could be useful to him, as because he's so good and he's helping others, and I want to be of service to that." And then he corrects himself and he's like, "No, that's not right. I don't want to die for him. I have to live so that we can be together and we can do more than just cook together. We could maybe hold hands or kiss or share a bed." And it's really sweet. And I was kind of like kicking my feet. And I will say I was reading this while I was on a clonazepam on a flight to Santa Barbara. So I had to read it twice in order to remember the details. And the second time I was kicking my feet too. It was cute. Like, first of all, I like the age gap because this golem has been in limbo forever. So the golem, while he is like 18, 19-year-old personality, he has had what I want to assume is like decades or maybe centuries of experience with other people. And he just kind of is, I would maybe not asexual, but he's just not very experienced in that part of interacting with others. And when he sees Callan, it's like his zaddy. And his dad is kind of like, "Gross, we look like the same age." And Callan is even like, "Oh my God, we're both old men." But Mikado loves Callan. He loves the way he looks. And I just think that's so cute. So as he's talking to his coworker's like, "Okay, well, like you should maybe be more blunt about how you want to move this relationship along." And he's like, "Well, every time I try to ask him to stay up late at night or anything, he looks kind of guilty, like he doesn't, like maybe I'm too young for him or something like that." And it's really cute. So we've got that kind of back and forth, and then the two do end up having the ceremony. Everything goes really well, and Mikado is there for Callan in a way, and Callan is able to, I think, see him, because he was so helpful in that ceremony, see him as this full-fledged adult with a lot to offer himself. And when they get back home, he kind of addresses the confession that he made on the end of the world. And he was like, "When we were out there fighting that maw, or when we were out there teleporting and you told me you loved me, I didn't know how to respond at the time. But I know now that, like, you, whether or not you can be reincarnated, you are a man and you deserve love. And whether or not I will be reincarnated and I have to leave you, I won't pity you. I won't not love you out of pity because I don't want you to be hurt one day. I won't infantilize you because I want to protect you from harm. So I will return your feelings." And then Mikado, they like make out. And then Mikado tells him, like, "Oh, this is crazy. This is like in my dreams and my fantasies." And Callan goes, "Oh, so you know what happens after this. So I don't even have to feel bad about taking your innocence because you already have an idea of what's about to happen." And then we get our spicy scene, and it's at the end of this book. So this book is, it's like, I think it's censored, but it's censored in a weird way where it almost looks uncensored. It's just very not detailed. And the spice scene happens at the very end. So like on my Kindle, it's 167 pages or something like that. And this probably happens at like page 150. It's like they make out, and then we get a little bonus chapter where they actually do it. And it is really spicy. It's really good. I like the like kissing. It has those sloppy kisses that used to really bother me in manga because it has like, I know it sounds gross even saying it, but it's like drooly sloppy kisses. So I really like the art. I really like the spicy scene, but that's at the very, very end. And then basically we have this after like the very end scene where Callan goes to his dad and is like, "Guess what? Me and your son hooked up." And he's like, "Don't give me the details." And he's like, "Oh, what? I want to call you dad now. Like it's important to get your permission to court your son." And they have this kind of jovial back and forth. And we do get some commentary from Callan about how he understands that everyone is laughing and going about their day, but they're also really acutely aware that they're there to better themselves in order to be reincarnated. So they're all working on something as well. So anyways, we get that kind of note at the end of the story that the dad, the caretaker, Mikado, and then the Reaper, or the Reaper, the general, Callan, those three, plus the floppy-eared bunny and the weird, like, pillow spirit guy, they're like their own little happy family, and it's really cute. And we get a second volume, and I think it's only 2 volumes, and I'm really excited and really nervous to go on to that volume, because I have a fear that they are going to move on to Callan's reincarnation and Mikado will be left behind. But I have faith. And this is something that I always tell myself when I'm having a panic attack. I have faith and not fear. So I will have faith that they can find a loophole in the reincarnation, and not fear that this is going to be a tragic, doomed yaoi. It can't be tragic and doomed. It's too cute. Like, to be honest, all the feels from this story are fluffy and green flag and like lovely. I think it's adorable. The two of these characters really see each other and celebrate each other. And although they're very different, they're different in age, they're different in temperament, they're different in the way they look. They're coming at this love story with this, like, I don't know, innocence and purity. It's like the afterlife, whether or not in real life they had any other experiences. In this afterlife, this is their first experience with another soul. And it's also this opportunity for them to create a really beautiful love story in what could otherwise be, like I was saying before, the scary universe. Like, Limbo could be so scary, or it could be this, like, rejuvenating, romantic, lovely pit stop on the way to something else. So I really appreciate this story. I also like the dad character. Like, I like that for him, this isn't a pit stop on the way to somewhere else. He is going to make this home for him and his son, because he's owning up for what he did wrong. And he's like looking for other people to like come into that found family so that Limbo could be their forever home. And honestly, if like I could have my special person, and like, I guess the thing is that you're separated from God, but this poses a different question, which is like, do you need to move on to a higher state of being if you're with the people you love? And I wish that was possible, and I hope that's possible, and I hope that all of us, when we get to what's ever on the other side, I hope we have our little found family and our clan, and whatever happens next, I hope in one way or another we get to take them with us. And I guess they're always with us, and that's what we learned from Banana Fish, is that our souls are always with each other, and you never really lose each other. So with that being said, I'm definitely going to read the second book. I love these characters. I love the idea of a golem, of a creature made of clay. There is a book by Anne Enright about a golem, and there's also a song, an old Irish folk song about a golem, and these images kept coming back of that creature. It's a creature used in a lot of different mythology, in a lot of different religions. And it's this kind of idea that love itself can materialize into a living being. And of course, when we procreate and make children, that's what we do. We like take love and we create life. And when we have a golem, it's oftentimes that same thing. We're taking love and we're creating life, but there's this added level of desperation, because you're not creating a new life. You are so desperately clawing back for a life that you once had, that a love you once had, a person you once had. If you like practical magic, I love practical magic, and that's even a little bit of the same thing. They reanimate a dead person, and the mistakes that come along with that they're dire. And I really like the trope, and so I'm really excited to move on to volume 2. I'll do a bonus episode for you guys. I hope you're enjoying book club. I know this episode's like a little bit shorter than normal, but I was gonna dive right into volume 2, but I thought it would only be fair to people who only read volume 1 that I didn't spoil volume 2 if you hadn't read it yet. So we'll save that for another episode. And with that being said, my delusional boyfriend from the series, it's Callan. I'm sorry. He's like, the facial scar almost always gets me. If there's a character with a facial scar, everyone else is basically out of the competition. He gives daddy vibes. He has his like crazy transformation into the Reaper when it's time to fight demons. Yeah, he's in a uniform. I love him. So it would definitely be Callan for me. I also kind of have a thing for Mikado's dad, and I also kind of have a thing for Mikado because he's like very feminine, and there's like a drawing of him with his shirt open and these flowers going down his side, and it was very sensual. So I kind of had a hard time choosing, but Callan kind of being so considerate of Mikado and the his ethical responsibility to this younger man and to this spirit that's trapped in limbo, all of that consideration made him just like such a massive green flag. And I would say he does even like, he really would be in my manga BL Delulu boyfriends. He'd be near the top. And when I read volume 2 and see how he handles like whatever their conclusion and their finale is going to be, then I'll know for sure where he ranks. So stay tuned. I kind of was hoping for book club that, you know, we could dip into these stories and figure out if they were something we wanted to invest in, especially when I'm like surrounded by physical media. These books are expensive. So I didn't want to just like buy every book in every series and then not know where to start reading. So I'm glad we read volume 1. Now I'm itching to read volume 2. It will make for a great other episode. I hope you guys will join me next month for November book club. We have a lot of exciting things coming up. And we also just released for October our anime of the month. I just did it with Val, and it was on Given. So if you're a Given fan and you love that BL anime, go give that episode a try. I will say we're very honest with how we feel about it. Neither one of us has a ton of nostalgia around that story. So if you're a tried and true fan and you don't want to hear any criticism, maybe skip it. For our manhwa of the month this month, it is another spooky title. It's Black Mirror. And then we are reading Kara's story for our reverse harem romance novels. If you're not reading the reverse harem romance novels, we're reading Elle Thorpe. That author has this whole universe, and I really think you should get into it. So join us for that. And then November, we've got a lot of exciting stuff as well. And of course, for next year, 2026, if you have any recommendations, please leave a comment. If you are watching this on YouTube and seeing my smiling face, you can comment there or comment on any of my social media posts and just be like, my delusional boyfriend is Jake Young from Jinx. Please do that for book club next year for the manhwa. Whatever your recommendation is, feel free to leave it. I love to take suggestions. I'm building out the calendar actively right now, and I'm really excited about next year. Thank you guys so much for listening and being a part of book club. I could not do this without you. With that being said, if you're not following along over on socials, do so that you can be the first in the know whenever I'm doing any kind of new project. And I guess with that, that kind of wraps up our October BL manga of the month. Until next time, remember, sometimes the delusion is the solution. Bye.